everybody who has a business that looks similar to what you want, like you're still going to feel awkward or feel like a fraud. But at the same time, like you're you. Like if you are 1 year into this, don't expect 10-year results. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Bearded Tog podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Our goal here is to dive into what it takes to run a successful business and help each other reach our business and life goals. Today, we are talking about something very serious. We are talking about imposter syndrome and feeling like a fraud. What do you do when people ask what you do for a living? Do you feel kind of queasy or kind of like uncomfortable or like, I'm a photographer or I'm a graphic designer? Or are you confident in it and you say, no, I'm a photographer and I'm a graphic designer, etc. A lot of times in business when we're starting out, and even me after doing this for 4 or 5 years now, we all feel this kind of queasiness at times, or this awkwardness when we think about our business. And sometimes it's fine, but other times, for a lot of us, most of the time, we might feel like we're faking it the whole time. And so a lot of people struggle with this. And so this is something I wanted to talk about, but it's very sensitive. And so I'm going to be kind of slow, very thorough. I wrote an outline for this episode, and I just want to encourage you to start off with this. We'll bury the lead right here is don't let the feeling of being a fraud keep you from the feeling of being you. All right. So that is my advice to anybody who's struggling with feeling like a fraud or imposter syndrome. And we'll dive into what that means today. But just know that there it is. First 2 minutes. All right. So we're talking about imposter syndrome, and some people were like, what does that mean? Is that the real word for it? Imposter syndrome or feeling like a fraud is really when you feel like an imposter. Like, am I faking this? Am I wearing a mask? Am who I really say I am online? People in general know that, maybe the Instagram life, it looks different than maybe real life, and people might assume that, but we feel that when we have imposter syndrome. We feel that fakeness. We are just waiting for somebody that we look up to maybe, or maybe there's friends in our community. We're just waiting for somebody to be like, no, this person's really not who they say they are. They're a joke. That's not real. The reality with that is that's simply not true. And that's simply, hopefully, not going to happen. Anyway, let's get into it. So a lot of the questions that happen if you might have imposter syndrome are you qualified for what you do? Are you qualified enough to make money at it? Are you qualified enough that people really thoroughly enjoy what you do? Whether it's photography or services, etc. In the spirit of being, open and transparent here on the Bearded Tog, like for me, for a long time, I struggled with that. I feel more on the lucky side where I'm just like, man, there is nothing better that I could be doing with my life right now than what I do. And I feel super blessed to be able to do it. And I'm kind of waiting, not necessarily for somebody to find me out. I'm just waiting for it to not happen. Not because I don't like doing, but it's just, I feel super lucky. It took a long time to get to that point. And so here's the kicker. Imposter syndrome starts when you compare yourself to others. Now, it might not, be something that you think about actively when you're feeling like a fraud. You're like, oh yeah, I feel like a fraud because of this person, this thing I read, etc. But you feel like a fraud because the standards that somehow you've put in your head are what you're putting your kind of business and lifestyle and personality up against. And those aren't matching where you want them to match. And the weird thing about it too is, especially with people when they're starting out, we'll use photography as an example because it's so good, is in photography, there's no certification or official standard when it comes to photography. You could get a degree in photography. My degree is not in photography. I learned photography on YouTube. And like when you're starting out in photography, a lot of times people want to buy a camera and then they instantly want to start a business. And I would say that's unwise, but even without it being unwise in the business sense of things, is like you are 100% more prone to feel like a fraud or an imposter when you're starting out on your camera and starting out in your business, because your skill level, you're going to put up against other people thinking, oh, well, if I can just shoot like them, I can run a successful business like them. And the truth is, as if you've listened to any episodes of this podcast, is it takes a lot more than just pricing or anything to run a successful business. Oftentimes, your beginning photography journey might not be the best, where it is or where you want it to be, but maybe your business know-how is a little bit further, or maybe they each take turns kind of taking steps forward and they never really feel aligned or matched up. That is going to make you feel like nothing. Honestly, that's when you're starting out in two different things, trying to run a successful business and trying to become a good photographer, or whatever you do, that is going to be super tough. And there's no certification you can point to. There's no degree. There's no nothing you can point to and be like, yeah, I'm this good. I'm qualified. I'm here. Doctors, med school, lawyers, law school, cosmetologists, cosmetology school, etc. Like for us, you can get a degree in photography and you can be great at everything that degree came with. But what percentage of my clients asked me for my degree when they hired me? 0%. None. Never. No one has ever asked me for my degree. That's not to encourage people not to go to college or anything like that or not learn more. But the reality is that in business, we don't have a standard as photographers, and that standard is kind of a moving target in the industry, depending on what industry you're in. It can be really difficult to gauge your success. And then if you can't gauge or measure your success, kind of like we talked about in the goals episode, if you can't gauge or measure it, then it's going to be hard to know where you're at. And that will drive you just as crazy as feeling like a fraud. So some days you'll feel like a success and you'll feel like a winner, and other days you're going to feel like a loser and nothing. The reason that I started this podcast with with my personal story and kind of my testimony of how I became a photographer, and it's really open and it's really transparent and it's really real, and it's not a pretty story for most of it. Episodes 2 through 4 are about pricing, because for me and a lot of people, when they started, that's what they struggled with. They struggled with being who they are and their pricing. It's still going to be tough to know when you're comparing yourself to others where you should be at. And so there's really not a hard and fast rule, but I think there are some good suggestions and things to get you along the way that we'll get to in a second. The other thing too, if you have imposter syndrome, is you're going to feel kind of nervous what others think, even if they're not the ones you're comparing yourself to. You just kind of want to stay afloat, and you feel like, okay, well, as long as this section of my friends think I'm okay and they support me, or, maybe when you're little, this was your parents, this was your mom, I remember playing football as a kid. I was on the defensive line, and if you know nothing about football, the defense's job is to stop the offense from scoring. And so we don't really block anybody per se. We are trying to aggressively cut in. And I was a lineman. I remember hearing my mom, she came to the game, she's super supportive. She said, "Adam, block that guy." And I started laughing on the field, and I was just like, oh man, she's so supportive, but that is not what I'm supposed to be doing right now. So you might have those people in your community, parents, friends, churches, etc., that are supportive, and they're like, hey, we're behind you. And this is not bad at all. And this shouldn't give you a false sense of, hope or accomplishment. Those people usually just support you as a person. They just like you. And I have these people in my life, and they're amazing, and they're so supportive, but they may not be the best authority on where you're at in your business and where you're at in your personal life, and how are you molding those two together, and how are you dealing with imposter syndrome. So when you're putting pressure on yourself and thinking about what other people will think, whether it's below you, at you, or above you, and not that people are below you or above you, but kind of different steps in their business. So, I'm not as experienced in my business as maybe the people I look up to who are 8, 10, 15 years in the business, but I'm a little more experienced than maybe somebody who's just starting out. And that's why we have this episode, because I want to help those people. A lot of times we're nervous what other people will think. And honestly, this imposter syndrome, being nervous, feeling like a fraud, feeling like a nobody, feeling like a nothing, this infects every aspect of our being and our business. There are days when I first started out where I would come home and I would get paid. I'd have a check in the mail, or a client would say they wanted to book me, I would be super happy about that and I'd have a great day. But then the next day, nobody would book me. Nothing would happen. There's no people coming after my services, and I would be sad. And, that's also like kind of probably bipolar maybe, but the idea is that I need to put away my personality and separate my personality from my business. That's the first thing. And not in a sense that you can't be personable in your business and you can't be authentic, but your personal success and your personal happiness should not be dictated by your business's success or your business's growth. You've been a human longer than you've run a business. Okay? No matter what. Like you should be focused on being the best version of yourself that you can, and your business is second place to that. At least second place. We'll get into values someday, but yeah, at least second place. Anyway, so this lack of confidence that we have in comparing ourselves to others and, feeling like a fraud and nervous with what others will think is, honestly, it comes back to that certification thing, is that we don't know what boxes to check. We are only checking the boxes that we think are the right path to us. We're checking the boxes that maybe we took a little online class, we watched a video, etc. And honestly, your lack of confidence, especially in the photography industry, comes from you not being skilled. You may not be a good photographer yet. You may not be in charge of your camera in the sense of knowing how to set it up for every situation, how to nail what the client wants, what you want. You might not be good at that. And that's okay, but you need to be authentic with that where your business is at as well. And so if you're not a master of your camera or a master of the things that you say that you are selling, or even we'll just say like an A-, you don't have to be a master at it, then you need to reevaluate where and when you're going to put out your business. I think, you've heard the pricing episodes, you should listen to those, is until you are good enough to kind of carry yourself, know your camera, be experienced, etc., which will help you in the long run with feeling like a fraud, then don't charge for your business. Just have fun, enjoy the passion, whatever it is, calligraphy, photography, design, etc. Like, just do it and practice so that you have the strongest portfolio you possibly can. And then you just say, all right, here we go. This is me. Because when you're starting out in your skill set, it's also not the fullest version of you doing that skill set. I'm better at being a photographer now, but I'm also like better at translating my personality through my camera because of the years of experience. Whereas at the beginning, I was just like, hey, I just hold it up to my face, press the button, here we go. And that's what everybody goes through. And honestly, like, I wouldn't recommend selling, that first year work, if you will. And you might have stuff that you love, you want to look back on and it's fun, but like, don't judge your personality by that. Like, look forward to, what you can do in year 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. Like, that is going to be where you and your skill set start to become one. Whereas like, you're starting a new skill, and a lot of people listening to this are adults. And so we thought we were done learning all our new skills, and now we're changing jobs and we're trying new passions, and we feel this feeling that we're supposed to do this or we want to do this and we're trying to figure it out. And the reality is like, we have to learn a new skill. We have to start at one, like I was in a karate class once where, man, we're getting all kinds of crazy stories. This was not in the outline. I was in a karate class once, or tungsudo technically. And, I'm a grown man. I was in college. I have a full-grown beard. I'm an adult. I have a bank account. And they put me in with the white belts, which are the newest people starting out. And most of them were 4- and 5-year-olds. And all of them could do the moves better than me. And so, I could see like moms laughing and people thinking just, they weren't being mean, but they were just kind of, wow, this is kind of silly. And I was laughing as well. And, but honestly, like, we're grown-ups and we're trying to learn a new skill. And sometimes it's okay to feel like a 5-year-old. But I think the idea of being authentic comes from really just honing in that skill. Focus on the skill and what you want to sell first. It needs to be great. If you're a graphic designer, what they always teach you is to, hey, build a branding package for a make-believe brand or a friend's brand for free. photographers, go shoot for free. Everything for free. Every single thing for free. Like, do it for free, but not in the knowing that you're trying to steal somebody's business. Say, hey, I'm still building on my portfolio, still trying to figure this out. Would you feel comfortable with this? And then also, if you're a wedding photographer, second shooting. Always assisting, second shooting, learning, asking questions, being curious, being assertive. Learn from people that are where you want to be and, try to get there, because I think they've been through it and I've been through it. And that's why we're having this episode, is like, we have been where you are. I've been where you are. There are times recently in the past few years where I have been where you are. And so that is a big deal. Every entrepreneur, every business professional has felt this way. Something that I've found interesting in my business and my life and the kind of journey that I've had for a while is, honestly, is that these things work backwards. And so we create work because creating work makes us happy, whether it's photos, design, calligraphy, speaking, whatever. We create this thing and we're happy while we're creating it, but then it doesn't end up how we want it to be. And that starts to make us feel like we're a fraud in that business or that we're not good enough. And that equally translates into how we're feeling personally. And that's really like this, part of the syndrome, the imposter syndrome, where it comes in. But then secondly, it also works in reverse. Like, if you have a bad day, it might affect how you work and what you create and how you do. And so just like musicians, when they have a good day and they make like a happy song, or they have a bad day and they write a bad day version of a song, it's going to be tough to kind of keep both of those boats afloat, if you will. The most important thing when it comes to this is the balance between desire to, or the need to rise to the level of competition while still finding your own voice. Like, unless you block out everybody that you look up to and everybody that you want to be like, everybody who has a business that looks similar to what you want, like, you're still going to feel awkward or feel like a fraud. But at the same time, like, you're you. Like, if you are 1 year into this, don't expect 10-year results. And I don't say that to degrade you. I say that to uplift you. Like, just be honest with yourself. Now, when it comes to the business side of things, yeah, I wouldn't try to work within 1 year. I would focus on your craft and enjoy the freedom. And then you won't have as much sadness when your business isn't doing as well. And you can just make work. Like, just create for fun. Just do it. Especially if you have, camera. It costs you nothing. It costs you absolutely no money to go create stuff. And if you have one friend, you can shoot that one friend. You can photograph that one friend. If you're a graphic designer, like, and you own a computer, at least you're already in a great spot. Like, there are plenty of free design programs, etc. Like, just go for it. Just do it. And then 2 years down the road, like, you'll be better off and you'll have a better start to begin with. Like, I had a full-time job. It was great and I loved it. And I could have been full-time freelance then, but I would have struggled and it would have been tough, and there would have been a lot more tough days where I didn't have a full-time job to rest on. And so I waited and I grinded and worked my life off, if you will, tons of hours a week, so that once I took that step and became full-time freelance, it would be a lot easier, safer, and it would feel more fulfilling to do my job. But the reality of all of this, when it comes to feeling like a fraud, feeling like an imposter, measuring ourselves against others' success, especially too, we all celebrate things. And if it's not the same day for you to celebrate something and somebody else celebrates something, you're going to be sad about that. And that's mostly just because we're selfish human beings and because we're, wish that we could be there. And honestly, like, we just need to be happy for our friends, or at least the people that we're following, and because they're on a different journey, like I just said. But here's the thing. Everybody's going to ask you, if you do talk to people about this, if you do become open with this, everybody's going to ask you this question. Why don't you just quit? Throughout your time, maybe in your childhood, and even as an adult, like, you're a grown up. Just, if you're not happy with what you're doing, just stop it. Like, just stop doing it. And the reality is that is not an option for us. You're an entrepreneur, business owner. You are on the journey to find what it is you want to do and niche down and find that exact thing that you love. But then also, you're on that journey to make something of yourself and kind of be in control of your destiny, especially if you want to be a freelancer. Like, you want to be in charge of your schedule, your lifestyle, whatever. Like, you feel this burning and this yearning to do that. And that's why you don't quit. You want to keep going for this. And kind of like the guitar analogy or photography is, you don't even see the full potential of what you can do until a few years in, at least on the skill side of things. Like, forget business for a second, but first 3 years of guitar playing, when I started playing when I was 10, I could play nothing. Like, I couldn't play anything cool. Any of the songs that I listened to on the radio, I had no idea how to play them. And then 3.5 years in, I had proper training. I took lessons. And so I feel like I had a leg up a little bit. And I finally started learning these songs like I heard on the radio, and it felt so magical, and I could play them correctly, even to the point where I actually met one of the guitarists from a big band that I love, and it was some weird like guitar show kind of thing, and I asked him if I could show him how I play one of his songs, and I played one of the songs, and he said, yeah, you played that exactly how I play it. That felt so good. It would have felt terrible had I not done that, had I not put in the preparation, had I not put in the time to have that skill set. And so, this is the reason that you don't quit, is because you don't want to give up on yourself early. You've got potential. You're listening to this podcast. You are valuable, you matter, and you have potential. Like, this is for you. I'm preaching here. Like, your value is not dictated on your skill. You have value, inherent value. Can't take it away, can't add it. You are valuable, and thus your skills don't define that. But if you want to go enjoy and embrace a skill, detach that from your value, enjoy it, go try it out, and don't give up for a while. Pursue it long term. Do things long term. Don't go to the gym for a month. It wasn't really for me. Don't pick up photography for a month. It wasn't for me. Do these things long term. Sarah and I always give friends dating advice, so this is not the podcast for that. But the biggest thing that I always tell people is, hey, no matter who it is, unless they're a serial killer or they're weird, go on a second date. Maybe even a third date. You don't, especially if you don't know this person, you don't get to know them till a third, fourth date. And if you do it correctly and safely and go to the restaurant and just chat, whatever, we're getting into dating advice. You won't have lost anything. You pay for your meal, have a good meal, whatever. Like, do it the right way, the best way, and get to know this person, and then make that decision. Because you could make a great friend, and that's great. But then also, too, that you get to know the real person. Sarah and I aren't who we are the first day we met. We both didn't like each other, and then, we're going to be married soon. So very different, work of process. And I always say, just think long term. It doesn't mean you have to stay in that thing forever, but you've got time. But also, too, I would encourage you, if you don't want to think long term. So for me, 2010, I went on a political tour doing photography. I shot 1,000 photos a day for 4 months. 1,000 photos a day for 4 months. I didn't think I was great, but man, nothing will make you learn quickly like doing 1,000 photos a day for 4 months. When I played guitar early on, even before college, I practiced 10 hours a week. 10 hours a week. That's 520 hours a year. In 10 years, that's 5,000 hours. So this is kind of, those are your options. But the main point I'm making here is that think long term and pursue the skill first. You can always add more business know-how. You can always spend your time researching. There's a good quote from my college president that said, "No time is wasted spent sharpening one's tools." And like, you're not going to feel worse for learning something, right? And so just keep going and trying and pursuing your craft first. Get better at all of that. Experiment. Oh man, this is going to be offensive to some of you, and I'm really sorry. But don't hold back. And, in the photography industry, don't call yourself a natural light photographer. Don't hold yourself back. You only know how to use natural light, or you don't like the look of artificial light, or at least you think you don't. Don't hold yourself back. Keep going. It doesn't mean you can't prefer to shoot in natural light, or you can't prefer where your wheelhouse is, but don't call yourself that. Just because you never dove into it deeper, keep going. If this is you and you feel kind of squeamish or wheezy and you're like, oh man, he's calling me out, I'm getting kind of feisty, Adam. I'm not dogging you, and your value is not determined by your craft. But I am going to tell you, encourage you, pick up that camera. Go practice. Go do it. Find something new. Make things happen. There are lights everywhere. There are people everywhere. Do it. I have another story for us when it comes to imposter syndrome and just struggling with the feelings that go with running your business and honing in your craft, and how do you feel like a success? So for me, I used to love winter as a kid because it represented the time of breaks and coats, and I think I look better in coats, and it represented the time of kind of like things were slowing down. But now I absolutely hate winter, especially the past few years, is because when winter comes, it sounds like a Game of Thrones promo or something like that. When winter arrives, I am usually not as busy as I am during the year, during the warmer months. And this is where I struggle with imposter syndrome the most, is that if I'm not working that much or I'm not busy, then I don't feel successful. And if I don't feel successful in my business, it's hard for me to feel successful as a person. So it's cold, it's bleak outside, and oftentimes in the winter, I'll just think about myself and I'll be kind of sad, and I'll think, I have done nothing noteworthy this year. I shot nothing. I did nothing. I went nowhere. My clients weren't as cool as other people's clients. And, you see things online from other people who still have weddings or still have gigs or still are getting work. And you're like, man, that is so cool. And, that happens to me all the time in the winter. And oftentimes I need my group of community, and we'll talk about how we break against this. But a lot of times I need my community to speak in my life. And, 2 years ago, I was talking to Sarah. We were still just dating. And I told her that I was kind of sad. I think this was 2015. And I said I was kind of sad because I only went on 3 international trips that year, Iceland, Bolivia, and Guatemala. And I really wanted to go on more, and I wanted to travel, and I wanted to do more, and I wanted to see more of the world, and I wanted to adventure. I'm from a small town, and I have this chip on my shoulder about knowing more and learning more and meeting more and telling more stories. And I was feeling kind of sad about only going on 3 international trips. And I think that year I went on a big road trip, and I did 66,000 miles in the air that year. And Sarah was like, Adam, some people don't even get to go on 1 international trip. Some people don't leave the state or the city if you're in the district. You need people in your life that can kind of be that awakening or that force of reason, if you will. And notice I said force of reason. I don't need a voice of reason. We need a force of reason. That'll preach. But, it's like I needed people to remind me. And so in winter, in those places where you feel like you might be prone to sink into the depths of imposter syndrome, feeling like a fraud, sadness, where you just want to put down your camera and not pick it up, or whatever craft you're doing, talk to somebody about it. Don't let it fester. And at the same time too, there's a good quote. I've heard this before in a lot of different circumstances, but I love it. It says, don't judge your behind the scenes by somebody else's highlight reel. All right. Don't judge your behind the scenes by somebody else's highlight reel. So anything you see online, anything, big celebrations, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, etc., that's somebody's highlight reel, hopefully. I never share, a lot of personal things online because I just don't want to do that. That's just my personal choice. And I like to communicate with my close friends about personal things. And then online, I want to celebrate the things that are happening in my life and the blessings that have been brought my way, and just the really cool things and opportunities that I'm so lucky to do. And I had a friend in college once who said, Adam, I feel like you're never sad, or I feel like life is never bad for you. And I was like, how do you figure, man? And he said, well, on Facebook, it's always happy stuff. Things are always going so well for you. And I'm like, yeah, Facebook is a billboard, and you choose what you want to put up on there. And I didn't want to put anything that, I didn't want to put my behind the scenes on there. And so it's not the idea of not being authentic per se in this particular instance, but, you're not putting your dirty laundry out there. And you want to celebrate things. You want to stay positive. So case in point, don't judge your behind the scenes by somebody else's highlight reel. And so how do we actually get past imposter syndrome? How do we really fix this? How do we not feel like a fraud? And so some of this will apply to businesses that have been around for a while. Some will apply to very new businesses, baby businesses that are starting out. And the first thing, like we talked about before, and this isn't to stop you, this isn't to halt you from taking on your dream or doing anything, but focus on your skill. Focus on your skill and only do that for a year. You're like, Adam, what about 3 weeks? No, do it for a long time. What is 1 year of grinding and hard work worth to have 10 years or 20 years or a lifetime of having a skill set? If this thing was worth getting, would it be easy to get to? And it's not. I have been a photographer since 2009, but I was just starting out then, and I've come a long way. And it's been 8 years, guys. 8 years. And that's not even as long as the people I look up to. And other people, they might get there faster. But all you have to do, focus on you. Just focus on you, your skills. You can always keep learning. You can always go to classes. You can always go to meetup groups, etc. You can always reach out to people. You can even have mentoring sessions. Plenty of photographers offer mentoring sessions, including me. Whether that's just about photography or business or both, you can always learn, but take some time and just separate your personal value from your skill and just focus on that skill. Just enjoy it and get great. Learn every day, shoot every day, learn a new, song on guitar every day. Whatever you want to do, just enjoy that and hustle at that. And you're going to learn things, even in doing those things that are intangible, that are going to help you better in the long run. If you're a photographer, you're going to see light differently as you keep going. You're going to see the patterns. You're going to see what things look like. You're going to try different things. And so that is going to be super important to focus on the skill. Secondly, and let's be real, this should have been number one. You're valuable and you matter. And I'm not just saying that to, to be like, oh, you matter. This is so cool. No, you matter. And what your value is not determined by what you do. That is not you. You are not determined. There's no quota for your personhood. There's no quota for your personhood. There's nothing to meet. You're you. You're valuable. And it's okay. Focus on you. And then make your skill be fun. Sorry I'm rolling on this, but it's a huge deal. And it's the number one thing that makes imposter syndrome pop out, is when you assign your value and your worth to the things that you do. Well, I'm not really good at scheduling my time. I'm not really good at going to the gym. I'm not really good at eating healthy. Everything revolves around your identity and your value, and you got to get that right first. You are whole. You matter. That is what matters. Thirdly, before I start preaching, if you have clients, and if you've been in business for a while, or maybe you're kind of in the in-between stage, you're overlapping, etc., don't let your clients be the full measure of your success. So a lot of times, if you've had all positive reviews in 1 year, you might say, hey, things are really good. And if you get reviews from every client, that's amazing. Not all my clients review me, good or bad. They just don't. And so a lot of times it's hard to know if you're on the right track, right? Because you think, well, my clients are happy. That's all that matters. And the reality is that is a big portion of it, but it's not the full say of what you're doing. Also, too, your clients right now, no matter how you think about it, they're short term. How are you doing? And what steps are you taking to be successful 5 years from now? What do you want to be doing 5 years from now? Implement those strategies now. And it might be a little slower. It might be a little bit tougher. Be ready to, have more clients and have better clients, and the best client look at your systems and processes. And that's really where you want to be, and you want to try and figure out where that niche is. So don't let your clients have the full say. But then, where do you get that knowledge from? How do you know if you're doing well? How do you know if you're on the right track? And here's the deal. Find a mentor or a mentoring group. Find people. I can do that for you. I would love to do that. Plenty of photographers or other industry people have mentoring. Don't just, can I, pick your brain and bring you out to lunch? Don't do that. I hate that. Offer that person real money, if you have it, or try to think of some kind of trade or whatever you can do to get that person's advice. And this can also just be your friends. So I would say, where I spend most of my time, we call them editors. And so these are people that you give permission to speak into your life or your business. Most of the time, it's not good to have both. So you make sure you have people that are speaking into your life, and you say, hey, I'm doing better at not associating my value with what I do. That'll be awesome. But then also to have some, a business mentor, somebody you can reach out to, not just a Facebook forum, because those people don't know you. They don't know your story. They don't know your goals. They don't know what you're trying to do. They don't know your mission statement. They don't know all the intricacies of all your clients, don't just rely on a Facebook group. Really, if you're really serious about this, it's never wasted becoming serious about anything that you want to do or want to learn. Get some people around you that can tell you how you're doing, look at what your strategy is, and try and help you get better, whether that's your skill or your business, or both. And then lastly, my last piece of advice to really do this is stop being afraid of being wrong. Really. So a lot of this comes from, we are thinking people are watching us. What are they going to think? I don't know. I just want to, write everything perfectly. Stop being afraid of being wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't spell things correctly on Instagram or something like that, but stop being afraid of being wrong, or stop being afraid of having an opinion. Just go for it. Just do it. Our opinion of being wrong holds us back so much. And when you are starting out, if you're you, wherever level you're at, if it's not for a client, or even if it is for a client and you're saying, hey, in my best interest or in your best interest, my experience, here's what we should do, or something you post on social media, or you're trying to, post 5 times a day or 1 time a day or no times a day. And, you just feel like you have to take on everything, but you don't want to, or you feel like you really have a good niche, go for that. Stop being afraid of doing things the wrong way and just keep moving. A guy his name is Mike Vacanti. He's actually a personal trainer. And he says, consistency over perfection. If you aim for perfection every time, you're not going to go to the gym. You're not going to get the salad. You're not going to get the healthy meal. You're not going to go out and try again, shooting something new or writing a new piece or drawing something. Consistency. Show up. Show up every day. That's another thing I love from a guy named Sean West. And he has this quote, and it says, if you subject yourself to someone else's success, you're never going to allow yourself the freedom to speak from your experience. I'll say that again. It's awesome. If you subject yourself to someone else's definition of success, you're never going to allow yourself the freedom to speak from your experience. And so a lot of times that's the next step is, as we talked about in the beginning, we struggle with, hey, am I a professional photographer? Am I a professional this? Which is a whole other podcast that we could talk about is what does it mean to be a professional? And a lot of times, what is the next thing for you is, can you speak with authority on a subject and really feel strongly about it? I only until probably 2 years ago can really feel strongly about stuff and speak with authority. That's why I have a podcast now. I'm like, hey, I think I know this. I'm going to try. Let's do this. Is you need to understand that you are successful and find those editors and those people to come around you and really help you gauge where things are at. And then you'll know if you can speak confidently about something, so if you're telling somebody how to breathe, you can probably speak confidently about that because you know how to breathe. You're doing it right now. You're doing it without even thinking about it. So that kind of mastery is something that we want in our business and our skill sets. And you want that to speak into their lives. And so the other thing I would tell you is you're the most authentic version of yourself. There's nobody like you. There's nobody that compares to you. There are people that are really close, maybe people that have similar mindsets, families, struggles, etc. But there is nobody like you. A lot of times people struggle with feeling like they're legit. They're like, am I a real photographer? Am I a professional? Or am I just an amateur? Am I whatever? And some people even put on their websites amateur. Don't do that. Focus on your skills until you feel proficient. And when you're proficient, you'll be professional. And I can talk about that more. But if you balance that honesty of struggling, and knowing where you're at and finding a mentor group or emailing me and being open about your struggles, if you balance that honesty with humility, you can go as far as you want. People, I don't really feel bad about this, but I'm not good at commercial portraits. I'm just not good at it, and I need to build up that skill set because I really like doing it. It really makes my friends look cool, and I really just want to take awesome photos of my friends. But I'm not good at it. But also, too, nobody's going to be like, well, Adam's the worst at commercial photography. He is terrible. They would know, oh, it doesn't look like Adam does that much, but it does look like he shoots weddings a ton, And so that honesty, just be honest and open about where you're at, one with your clients and one with yourself. Don't try to be somebody else. When I was first starting, I really looked up to, ironically, we're going to have him as a guest next week. I really looked up to Tony Hoffer. I still do. He's the man. Just everything about his business, his life, everything. Outside of being an idol, he's just done things in a great way. And the ways that he does a lot of things, I do very similarly, or at least I try to. But I know I'm not him. He's been doing this for a lot longer. He's got different life situations than I do. He's in a different demographic than I am. He's in a different geographic location than I am. We have different skill sets. He's older. He's got different experiences. He's went to a different college. Everybody is different. Everybody. You got to focus on you. Who are you? Are you the best version of you being you? You are. You have value. And so like that is what matters. And if you are that way, you can go as far as you want. But if you compare yourselves to others, you'll always be held back because there's always somebody better. There's always somebody that does something a little bit better than you. You focus on your shooting, somebody's got better SEO. You focus on your SEO, somebody's got more Facebook likes. You focus on your Facebook likes, somebody's got more Wedding Wire reviews. You focus on more Wedding Wire reviews, somebody's got more Instagram followers. Focus on being you. What's your thing? What do you want to do? What's your passion? Niche down on that. Don't let the fear of wrong keep you from being the feeling of being you. You're you. You're not a fraud. You're only a fraud because when you compare yourself to others, because a lot of times we're trying to put ourselves in that person's mold. Don't do that. It's not going to fit. You're you. You can only fit in your mold. You can change your mold, but you can only fit in your mold. Man, I'm getting preachy here. Yeah, so that is part of my thoughts on imposter syndrome and feeling like a fraud. Seriously, guys, if you struggle with this, email me. Seriously, email me. We'll talk about it some more. It's such a serious thing, and it's debilitating to a lot of businesses. And I've seen a lot of photographers just quit when they don't get business, or they feel like they're not good enough at photography. Just go do it. Just go practice. Do it. Do the skill for the sake of making yourself happy. Do that skill for the sake of learning and for the sake of enjoyment, and for the sake of making something, and for the sake of adding something to the world, adding something to your personhood and your legacy. Do it for that sake. And then find the editors and people around you in your life that can say, hey, you should do a business at this. Here, do you know the steps? Can I help you? Can we figure it out? Email me. Let's work together. I'll mentor you. Whatever you want to do, like find those people. Let's try and make that happen so that you're not just struggling. Because I think too is you might spend a longer time dealing with imposter syndrome down the road than you should just focusing on your skills. And you want to focus on skills. Focus on your business, focus on your skills, focus on you. Don't be held back. Because then if you focus on comparing yourself to others, it might take you longer. Honestly, I think it might have taken me longer because I was just so overwhelmed. And different years, you go to different conferences and different workshops, and your brain just gets warped by, oh, should I change this? Oh, should I do this? And a lot of times you should, but at the same time, some conference speaker is speaking to 400 people. They might only be giving a message that is for 25% of the people there, and you're trying to say, oh, should I change my entire business off of this thing? It sounds so good. Everybody makes it sound so great. Oh, well, these 3 people I look up to are doing it. Who are the people closest in your life? Who are the people that are loudest in your circles? And do the people that know you the most respect you the most? That's what matters. You're you. Focus on you. And also, too, this is my last piece of advice. This is a bonus. Don't go too fast. You get a full-time job and you're like, oh, man, I would really love to sell things on Etsy, or I'd really love to start an email newsletter. I'd really love to do photography. Do that on the side. 168 hours a week. Everybody's got the same amount. Try it. Make it happen a little bit at a time. You're not sure how to go about it, not sure how to set goals and make it happen, listen to the 2 goals episodes, both of them. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time specific. That's how you fix a goal. And, what's the motivation behind eating a whale? 1 bite at a time. You can only take it on 1 bite at a time. And so just go for it. An hour a week. It's more than what you're doing now. Just go do it. Don't try to come up with this master plan and you say, oh man, progress, consistency over perfection. And this is just one last thing too, just to remind you guys, don't let the fear of being wrong keep you from the feeling of being you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Seriously, right now, you feel like, man, this episode got me fired up, or this gave me permission, or actually this episode was kind of hard to listen to because he's right or he's wrong or you disagree. Email me, thebeardedtog@gmail.com. Email me. Let's talk about it. Let's work it out. Let's figure it out. I want everybody to be successful, and I truly believe that everybody can. Let's do that. Let's take away the secrets. Everybody is struggling with imposter syndrome at one time or the other, and let's just talk about it. So thank you so much for listening to the Bearded Tog podcast. I'm Adam Mason. It's been a pleasure talking about this super sensitive subject. Please subscribe. And lastly, I need a favor. We're almost to 100 reviews on iTunes, and it really just helps us get into the right eyes and help more people and find better categories. Please go review us. If you thought this episode was bad, leave a 1-star review. Go for it. Thought this episode was awesome, leave a 5-star review. Write whatever you want. Please go leave a review. That'd be awesome. Thank you so much. Have a great day.